Soukup Real Estate Services would not be anything that it is today without the person sitting to my left, Miss Izzy. Having been in Fort Collins for 5 years, I guess, and working for Soukup Real Estate Services for almost 3 years, she has quite the story when it comes to moving to Fort Collins, choosing Fort Collins, staying in Fort Collins, and if you guys just watched the previous video, living in Wellington. But I thought it would be a great opportunity to introduce her story of why she chose Fort Collins, what CSU is like, working through college, graduating, working full-time in real estate at a introductory salary, kind of, but then also having side hustles, and what the day-to-day operations are like for a 23-year-old. So
good job, you're killing it.
Yes, absolutely. But if this video shows you anything, it shows you what hard work is, and also I think what great teamwork is like. So what's up, everybody? My name is Patrick Soukup with Soukup Real Estate Services here in Fort Collins, Colorado. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing if what you're looking at doing is learning everything there is to know about Northern Colorado and Fort Collins. And if you are considering buying, selling, or investing, we are licensed real estate agents here, so give us a call, text, or email, and we've got your back. Without any further delay, let's jump into today's video, the introduction to Izzy into Fort Collins, Colorado. So 5 years ago, you made your way to Colorado State University in Fort Collins, Colorado. I'm sure that decision happened quite a bit before that, yep. But you made your way here about 5 years ago. So talk to us about even how you came across Colorado State University and what was some determining factors that brought you here.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Washington State, and when it was my junior year, I was starting to look around. But right before I started looking, I grew up riding at a barn in a place called Snoqualmie in Washington. And there was a girl who had graduated high school and went to Colorado State. And she joined the equine science program, and she was on the polo team. And so we traveled to Oregon and watched her play. And then I sat around with all these girls that were in equine science at CSU, and I was like, horse science? You can study that? So I was super excited, and so that's kind of how I heard about it. But then when it came to me actually looking, probably like a year after that, I saw CSU, Montana State University, and Washington State University all had an equine program or agricultural program, and I visited the one in Washington. Wasn't a huge fan. Didn't visit Montana, and then I came out to CSU, and I was just like, yes, this is it. This is 100% what I was looking for. I liked the open space. It's just so freeing to be here. And then there was another determining factor. I got the WUI scholarship, which basically you only have to pay 1.5 times CSU out of state instead of 1.5 times, I think is what it is. So that was a big factor too. I got that, so it allowed me to come out of state just because it is a lot more expensive. But yeah, I just came on campus, fell in love.
So you came on campus, fell in love. Now, did you come here freshman year through senior? Okay, so did you live in the dorms your freshman year? Okay. I did. And then sophomore year, would it have been when you moved into Somerville?
Yep. Yeah.
So sophomore year, she moved into one of my rental properties and only lived there for not too long.
Just under a year.
Just under a year.
This is how I got the job.
And this is how we got introduced. At that point, I was still managing all the properties myself, so the communication was between the two of us. She ended up wanting to sublease her property, ended up getting me 2 leases out of it, both the person who she showed downstairs and upstairs was interested, or sorry, that she showed downstairs ended up taking the downstairs unit that was available and one of the upstairs units that were available. So I think I might have sent a text at that point like, hey, if you're ever looking for a job, I might have a summer leasing position for you. And that was her sophomore year. But Izzy worked throughout college at Silver Grill. And
Sushi Jeju. I had a lot of jobs in college.
Okay.
Yeah.
And but she worked throughout college,
Yep.
and she paid her own way through college, which I think is really pretty amazing in today's, debt-laden world as far as college debt. So talk to me a little bit about why and how you kind of managed, working through college and being a full-time student.
Yeah, so, well, my freshman year, I got to live the bougie life. I had worked a ton the summer before, so I came to CSU, didn't have a car, and just was having a bunch of fun. My sophomore year, I found out that I unfortunately didn't have the money I thought I was going to have to graduate without any debt. So when I heard that that wasn't going to be a thing anymore, pistons started firing. I was like, okay, if I'm going to go to the school out of state, I need to graduate and do something. But while I'm in school, I need to be able to take care of myself and start chipping away at these loans because it's going to be a lot. So that's kind of a huge part of it, because that really is what started to drive me. So at the end of the day, I'm thankful, because I'm thankful that I was able to work through college. And honestly, it wasn't too hard. With Sushi Jeju was a part-time job. That was my sophomore year. My junior year, I got a full-time job at Silver Girl, which Patrick's talked about. It's an awesome restaurant. And what's awesome about CSU is you can have classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Tuesday, Thursday. So I'd work all day Tuesday, Thursday, and then Saturday, Sunday, and then I'd have classes stacked Monday, Wednesday, and then Friday. So really, honestly, it wasn't too hard. It wasn't until my senior years when I started with Patrick, and so I went back down to part-time, and I really just embraced the experience, the college experience, and joining clubs and going and doing things, because that's one downside about working during college, especially if you really care about your grades, and that's an important thing, that's a whole nother job in itself. So I do kind of get bummed that I didn't experience things all 4 years, but I'm happy that I did my last year, and I'm also grateful that I was able to work through college and look after myself, because it's a really nice feeling.
Yeah. No, I think one of the things that are a commonality between Izzy and myself is we really enjoy hard work, and we, kind of like the idea of working like nobody else does today so we can live like no one else can in the future is kind of one of the things that, I think we both kind of look at as far as what we would like to do with our lives. But I came to Izzy back when she was a senior, and I just business was booming. It was doing great, and I needed help. And so I reached out to Izzy, who was a tenant of mine, but showed that she both could lease property. And honestly, I didn't even think about anybody else. I reached out to her. It worked out. She came on, and I think with employees, you kind of get this mixed bag. You never know what you're going to get until they start working for you. And I just immediately, knew I was lucky, because Izzy definitely works very hard. She takes ownership in what she does and doesn't take anything for granted. And so I could really step away. And I think she would attest that I was probably not the best of bosses at the beginning, in the sense of I was so busy. There was no training, or very minimal. And part of her jobs was to literally build policies around what she was doing, so that if she didn't work out and I had to bring on somebody else, that person would have all of these training manuals that they could go by and learn. So she did not really get the training that
you would have expected,
especially in this position. But it was kind of like one of those things. She got thrown into the deep end, and it was a sink or swim deal. And I'm very grateful that she swam, because I don't know really what I would do, but 3 years later, almost 3 years later, she has transitioned to full-time after she's graduated. I think she got paid a very fair salary her first year, a very fair salary her second year. But what is it like as a young person, recently graduated, making maybe not necessarily an intro salary, but yeah, close to an intro salary here in Northern Colorado? Can you survive? What is it? What do you need to do to make it work?
It's great. I didn't think alone that I would graduate from CSU and then be able to still live in this area, just because it is more expensive. So the fact that I get to stay here and live here and can survive, and horses are expensive. I've just got a dog that's expensive. So I can definitely afford to live here. I like nice groceries, organic stuff, so I'm not having to scrape by really on anything. So yeah, it's really freeing. I love that the thought of the fact that I moved from a different state and kind of started over which I think is probably the best thing I ever did. And then now being able to like look after myself and pay a mortgage and like, I don't know, it makes me feel just like very independent. And even like my senior year, I knew I was going to be going full time with Patrick. It made like my last year just so chill. Like I was like, I don't need to worry about where I'm going because I know where I'm going and I'm excited about it. So it's honestly been a blessing.
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge leap for me financially at that time because I wasn't necessarily ready for it, but best thing I could have ever done. And, you know, it's one of those things where being from Fort Collins in real estate, I completely understand a lot of my friends haven't been able to afford or haven't had the kind of gumption to buy a house. You know, one of my best friends just bought a house and we're in our early 30s, which is totally fine, not a problem, because it is scary, and especially when there's so much information out there about like, are we in a housing bubble? Are we in an economic bubble? What is going on? And I think, you know, Izzy said, and I don't totally recall it, but she said, you know, like I was asking about renting, and I think I just said, why would you rent when you could buy?
Yeah.
And
it was last January. He was like, why are you talking about rent? Because I was like, maybe I'll rent one of our properties. He was like, you should just buy. And he was like, it only costs like, he just started throwing all these numbers around, and I was like, well, if he makes it sound that easy, then sure, I'll try it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and she is definitely, again, willing to do what young people, in my opinion, should do. When anyone young that asks me about investing and getting involved with properties, what she is doing is like literally like the game plan that I think all young people should do, and that is quote unquote house hacking. And she has herself and then 2 roommates that are paying the majority of the mortgage, and then she has a small portion of the mortgage that she still has to pay some, but not, you know, a tremendous amount. And all the while, each month paying down, let's just call it $400 to $500 worth of principal each month, building equity, appreciation, and, you know, also has the pride of ownership. You know, if you go follow her on Instagram at Isabel Ibrahim and follow her Arbonne sales. Go buy her Arbonne. And
that was such a deviation.
But what I was gonna say with that is that I follow her on Instagram, and you can see when she's cleaning up her yard, you know, she's decorating her office and study. So like there's this pride of ownership. And one of the things that I was talking with a coworker today about was he was wanting to buy his house from his aunt or something along those lines. And I was telling him, I was like, well, don't put money into that house unless you own that thing, because you're just building equity for somebody else. Like, I think you're nuts. Either you need to buy that house from them or figure something else out, but don't be updating this house for somebody on unless they're paying you, of course. But all that being said, I know it was a huge leap, especially for somebody very young. I bought my first house when I was, gosh, I can't even remember, 2012. So that was 9 years ago. So I was 22 as well, and I think you were 22 when you bought yours, or
it went on the market and I turned 23. So.
Ah, yes. So yeah. she almost was there, but yeah. No, it was buying a house at 23 years old and being able to provide for yourself here in Fort Collins with a, you know, starting salary, but doing it in different ways, having a side income, house hacking, you know, making some kind of sacrifices. I mean, because if in a perfect world, you know, we'd all be retired, I guess, and have a mansion and whatever, that you never have to have any roommates. But I don't know, if you were to talk to somebody who's moving here to Fort Collins, who's going to make anywhere between, let's just call it $60,000 to $100,000, do you feel it's possible for them to make it here in Fort Collins?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And like between making $60,000 to $100,000 a year, yeah, definitely, I think so. Fort Collins isn't that. I don't know. I mean, coming from Washington, the homes, like when we moved to America, we moved to Washington, and our home was 400 and something thousand, and that was in 2004. And now it can be on the market for like 1.5. So it's like I come from an area where 800,000 to 900,000 houses is kind of normal.
Yeah.
So moving here, it's cheaper, but then obviously when you're trying to buy, you're like, this is expensive. But definitely, I think someone could get by. And then if you, I don't know, like I feel like having 40-hour work week is like not, whatever. It's people are doing more than that now. And like if you want, you could probably live comfortably like the reason I started a side hustle is because I want to get my, I mean, there's so many reasons, but I want to get my loans paid down quickly. I just want to like not, like that phone call I got my sophomore year where it was like, you're not going to get this money to pay off your loans. I never want to be in that situation again where I'm worrying and having worry, and I don't want my family to worry, like, so I just like want to create a very stable foundation and like come up to a playing field where I can invest in more properties and like do what Patrick does, because I love doing it for him and I want to be able to do it for myself as well.
Yeah, and so what Izzy does for me is lots of things. I mean, anything and everything really, but we've transitioned the company over the last year to where she's doing a lot of showings. She works on contract as far as drawing them up, reviewing them, making sure that they're all accurate, dates and deadlines. She has her own real estate license. She's bought a house. She works closely with me to make sure that all of our I's are dotted, T's are crossed. And even though she's in the background a little bit, but she will definitely be in the forefront of things when she's showing property to you and you're out there and you have questions. She's very knowledgeable. And it's funny, one of the things, she's been in the business now for 3 years. I was talking to my other assistant, Ashley, yesterday. I said, one of the things that Izzy doesn't even realize how much she really has learned and knows about real estate until she talks to somebody who has no clue about real estate and they're asking questions and she's like, oh, well, this is how, you scope a line and how much it's going to cost to scope a line. And if you replace a roof, this is what it's going to be. And, a foundation issue is a big deal. So all of these different things that she's learned on the investment side and now showing, tons and tons of houses and seeing houses herself, she's really a big asset to me and my company. And, we're grateful to have her. Now, where do you kind of see yourself as far as like the growth of Fort Collins? Do you see yourself staying in Wellington or moving back to Fort Collins, or where are you kind of seeing or somewhere else?
So I imagine having a home base in northern Colorado, but eventually I really would like more of like an operating ranch situation. So it probably wouldn't be in Fort Collins. I mean, there is one beautiful property, I don't know if you've seen it, like towards Bellevue, that's like, I mean, that's amazing. But probably northern Colorado, outskirts a bit. I like this environment. I like this community. I feel like I've built something here and I don't feel done yet, so I want to keep going for sure. So I'd say imagine having a home here and then one day having a home in like a couple other countries, so like you can go and travel and see. I have family all over, so I want my home body base, and I think Colorado is it. It's the happiest I've ever been is living here, but probably traveling a lot too.
So Fort Collins was the right decision for you?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you guys took as much from this video today as I have over the 3 years knowing Izzy. And if you guys have any questions for her specifically, definitely feel free to reach out, or you can reach out through my email and I can connect you guys with her. Definitely has a younger perspective, but very mature for her age. Knows a shit ton about horses that I know nothing about. And I can tell you, I've worked with a lot of people that are coming in from out of town and they talk about horses or like, that they have a horse. I'm like, oh, well, you should definitely talk with Izzy because I don't know anything about it. But
horse girl.
You'd never know she's only 23 years old when you start talking with her, because she definitely is mature beyond her years and a very, very hard worker and very successful for her young age. And I can't wait to see where the future goes for Izzy and Soukup Real Estate in Fort Collins.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for watching.